Hey everybody, and welcome back to the TNT Smoke Factory. I'm your host TJ Tilford, alongside my dad Terrence Tilford, and we're here to bring you a unique look at college football, both inside and outside the lines. Today we're going to head west to Boulder City to talk about the Colorado Buffaloes. We'll give you guys our season preview and predictions of this year's team.
So first, let's take a look back. Colorado Buffaloes. We're talking about a 4-8 team
Yeah,
that is probably the most hyped up 4-8 team in history.
most definitely the most hyped up 4-8 team
Yeah,
ever.
4-8. You don't expect a lot of eyes to be on a team like that, but they have a lot of eyes on them, and they had a lot of eyes on them last year. So first, let's talk about what happened last year. They were set to be bowl eligible, I think, had they put things together correctly.
Yeah,
But then they had some really, really embarrassing losses in that conference. Now, we talk about the Pac 12. Pac 12 was a very difficult conference last year. They probably cannibalized themselves in some respects. But still, you don't want to see huge losses
yeah,
like the ones that they took against Washington State and Oregon. And then you're talking about a really embarrassing loss when Stanford comes in to your home field, you're up 29 points and you lose the game.
yeah. Unexplainable.
Unexplainable.
Yeah,
Unexplainable and inexcusable. They should have at least been 5 wins that season, but I think they could have eked out a 6 had things gone the right way.
yeah. And we talk about them being 4-8, but the reason that they were 4-8, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the talent. In my opinion, it was really the offensive line. And I know you
Absolutely.
love to talk about how much that offensive line struggled last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let you take this point.
Well, when you really look at the offensive line, that was the Achilles heel of that team.
Yeah.
Had that offensive line performed better, they could have gotten to that 6 wins that most people were expecting them to get to, at least be bowl eligible. But it didn't happen. And look at the carnage that happened. Shedeur Sanders was the number one sacked quarterback in all of NCAA football.
Yeah.
All of it.
52
times
Yeah.
he's on the ground, leading up to the fact that he can't even play in the season finale. He can't even play because he has a fractured back.
Yeah.
That offensive line could not open up holes for Dylan Edwards. They constantly had to drop back and look for the quick passing game, or Shedeur had to take off and improvise.
Yeah.
That offensive line was the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can be said redeeming toward that offensive line.
Yeah. Now, yes, they went 4-8 last year, but they had a few positives as well. They had some close games against Oregon State,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, Utah, USC. Now, I know all of these teams, except for probably Arizona, their record doesn't show that they're good teams because most of those teams are finishing with 4 losses, 5 losses, stuff like that. But when you look at the Pac 12 from a season ago, I constantly talk about how, in my opinion, the Pac 12 last year was the best conference in college football.
Okay.
And they really beat up on each other in
Mhm.
conference play. And that's why some of these teams' records don't show how good they really were. Those close games that Colorado had from a season ago were against some really talented teams. Their record might not have shown it, but these were some really talented teams.
And if Colorado had an offensive line, they could have pulled out some of those games.
Most definitely.
At least 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah. And then to stay on track and talk about talent, some talent that Colorado brings back, you have Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. If you don't know by now, I think he could really go number 1 in the NFL draft this year. He's that good at quarterback. A year that quarterback is probably going to be down in college football, in my opinion. There's not as many big names that you're hearing about, but I think he emerges from the pack and could be the number 1 quarterback when April comes around next year and we're talking about the NFL.
I think in April we will talk about Shedeur being the first quarterback off the board. I think some of the teams might get a little conservative at the top, though, and question whether or not he's really a franchise quarterback. So you might not see him go number 1 overall, but definitely first quarterback off the board.
Another guy that could go number 1 in next year's draft, Travis Hunter. This is a two-way monster, something we don't see a lot in college football. I think the last two-way monster I could really remember was Jabril Peppers at
Mm-hmm.
Michigan.
Yeah.
But Travis Hunter, in my opinion, is levels ahead of
Mm-hmm.
Jabril Peppers.
Yes.
He will be in New York for the Heisman finalist, in my opinion, and he could win it.
Yeah. You're talking about Mr. Do It All.
Yeah.
And we say how it's always a quarterback's award to give. But when you have a guy who can play on both sides of the ball, I think that kind of nullifies we're just isolating the quarterbacks. He's somebody you're going to have to keep your eye on. And I think, just as you said, if he puts together a season much like he did at the beginning of last year and start, adding on to that, I think he could walk away with the award.
Now, another receiver we have to talk about, Jimmy Horn. When Travis Hunter
Oh,
did
yeah.
go down, this was a guy that made some big plays for that Colorado
Mm-hmm.
offense. I look back at the game against Colorado State. He made some big catches that propelled Colorado to that comeback win.
Yeah.
And then another guy, Amarion Miller. Now I know this guy didn't see the field as much as he should have last year, but when he did, I think of that breakout game he had against USC.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a dangerous receiving corps.
Yeah, and Amarion he's very deceptive receiver.
Yeah.
What I want to see out of him is more consistency, though. I mean, what he did again in that USC game, awesome. But I don't want to see him, showing up and then disappearing throughout the season, because they're going to need, he puts them at 3 deep at receiver, and that could be a challenge for a lot of those Big 12 defensive backfields. So maybe they get more wins just simply by the depth they have at receiver. We'll see.
And then staying on track with that receiving core, they also brought in Will Shepard from Vanderbilt, an explosive wide receiver. And then they also brought in Dallin Hayden at running back.
Yeah.
Now, they lost Dylan Edwards to the portal. He went to Kansas State. Dallin Hayden, he came in from Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
When he did see the field, he was explosive. I look back at his freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
He helped them down the stretch when Trey Henderson couldn't go.
This is a quality running back.
Yeah, and he didn't see the field as much as he should have, in my opinion, at Ohio State. But he's a guy that, you lost Dylan Edwards. He can fill those shoes for this Colorado offense.
Yeah, you look at Dylan Edwards. He was a very shifty back, really quick. I think what Dallin brings to that team is a lot more balance.
Yeah.
Dylan struggled to run in between the tackles. Now, again, we talked about a terrible offensive line, so maybe that's part of the reason. But I just don't think that Dylan was as sizable of a back necessary to get through some of those holes.
Yeah.
You need a back that can hold his own in in the one-on-one when you got a line that's still building and struggling.
Yeah. Now, their defense from last year, I'm going to let you take that point because they had a lot of ups and downs, in my opinion.
More downs than probably ups.
Yeah.
Their defense, you look at where the stats show. 453 yards they gave up on average every game. 34.8 points per game. That puts them in the bottom 10 nationally in both those categories. So you're talking, or you're saying that the teams can move the ball with ease, and they can put points up on the board, and you don't have a line that can give your offense enough time to match. So that was troubling. So you got to look. That's a lot of holes to fill, because of those 453 yards that they were giving up quite a bit of yards on the ground.
Yeah.
So that front four, not only were they not stopping the run, but they also weren't getting pressure on the quarterback. So now you got to look at, how do we rebuild this thing? In comes some transfers on the defensive line. You got Sam Okunlolo from Pitt. You got B.J. Green from Arizona State, Quincy Wiggins from LSU, and you get a new defensive coordinator in Robert Livingston. Now, think about this. Robert Livingston, his history is in the NFL as a secondary coach.
Yeah.
So he can help shore up that secondary that includes some explosive players. We already talked about Travis Hunter, but you also got Shiloh Sanders back there as well. So maybe they can turn things around, shore some things up on the defensive end. I do not expect them to go from 34.8 points, giving up 34.8, down to only giving up 10 to 15.
Yeah, not
But
at
if
all.
we can get them to the point where they're only giving up 20 to 21 points a game, I think that puts Colorado in a position to win a lot more ball games.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about Colorado, their biggest point and their biggest talking point is how is Deion Sanders a head coach
Yeah.
and how he runs his program. Now we know who Deion is.
You know who Deion is.
Flashy player,
Mhm.
flashy person in general.
Mhm.
That's how he always has been.
Yeah.
And it's kind of reflected on the players in the program.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't like how Deion runs his program because it's very social media oriented.
Yeah.
When you look at Colorado, they're constantly talking on social media. Shador is constantly putting out tweets. Travis constantly either streaming or putting out tweets. So a lot of people don't like the way he runs his program simply because of the fact that it's so social media oriented. How do you think that will affect them this upcoming season?
Here's the thing. I think people put too much emphasis on who Deion is, and they try to make it seem as if it's going to be a distraction for the program. When you look across the nation, look at all the programs, typically the program reflects who the head coach is. If the head coach is a conservative guy, you're going to see the program operating in a conservative manner. If the coach is a flashy guy, such as Deion, you're going to expect that program is going to run in more of a flashy manner. So I think it's a little bit unfair to try to label it as a distraction. I say instead of it being a distraction, it's just the culture that he's creating. That doesn't mean that it has to take away from the X's and O's, that it has to take away from the performance on the field. I don't believe that. I believe that that edge that they are operating under should be the edge that they play with on the field. So right now, you're just trying to get the players to match the culture, not just in flash, but in substance as well. Because we're talking Deion Sanders, who is, arguably one of the best players ever to play the game. So his flash has substance. Now he just has to get these players to understand that it's not all about the flash, but the flash comes with substance. Remember, Deion was one of the first guys that I've ever heard say, if you look good, you play good.
Yeah.
So he's going to have his team looking good. Now they have to step up to the plate, do their part, and play good.
Now, finally, before we get into the record predictions, we have to talk about Colorado moving conferences to the Big 12 this season. As we know, the Pac 12, sadly, its days are over.
Yeah.
All the teams have left. Colorado has found a new home in the Big 12. And in a new conference, they will also find new foes. Now, I don't expect this Big 12 to be as good as the Pac 12 was last year, but there are still some dangerous and talented teams out there that Colorado is going to have to face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The likes of the Arizonas of the world, I think they're coming around, and that program is definitely on the uptick. So just as Colorado is trying to get their program on the uptick, you got other programs around them that are doing the same. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this conference how it gels and what rivalries come out of the, new matchups.
Now, let's get into our record predictions for Colorado this season. First game, they're at home against North Dakota State. This is a North Dakota State that has been running the FCS for years.
Yes.
But last year, they had their worst season since 2010.
But I still think that team is about culture. They have a certain culture that they operate under. Yes, they had a bad season last year, but I look for them to rebound or rebuild and rebound. So I don't look for them to stay in the lower echelon of the FCS. I look for them to bounce back and once again become that dynamo that they were before. They recruit pretty well up there for it being an FCS school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think that Colorado, since it's at home, they're the more talented team. This is going to be a good matchup, one of the better week one matchups that we have. And I think Colorado will come out on top.
I absolutely agree. I believe you don't put an FCS school on your schedule thinking that you can't beat them.
Yeah.
So they're on that on Colorado's schedule for Colorado to kind of break some rust off, kind of be a practice game. See how many of the underclassmen you can get in early. Playing. Just building depth. I look for Colorado to win big in this game.
Now their next game at Nebraska. This is a game that's already been confirmed for a night game. It's going to start at 7:30 on NBC. Uh, Nebraska has Matt Rule at head coach. Not a very trustworthy head coach, in my opinion. I don't trust Matt Rule to do big things, but I do expect Dylan Raiola, their freshman quarterback, to do big things. Now, maybe not this season, since he's not going to have as much experience, but in the near future, I think he will be one of the best quarterbacks in college football, but not this year, not so fast. I think Colorado is the more talented team. Yes, this game is at Nebraska. We know that their crowd can get pretty rowdy. They have a nice stadium down there, but I think Colorado, the better team, more experienced team. I think it'll be close. Will Colorado's offensive line come around? That's the question. Nonetheless, I think they'll beat Nebraska for the second year in a row.
Okay. I'm looking at this game, and the biggest highlight that I have on this game is that it's in Nebraska and it's at night. How is Colorado going to be able to handle that atmosphere? You come in, you still got the questions about the offensive line. When you're going on a big road test like this, you would hope that your running game comes with you and that you're going to lean on your running game for a win. I just don't have the faith that Colorado has put it together for that to happen. I think Matt Rule, again, I'm with you. I don't have a whole lot of faith in him, but I think he has enough to put together in order to win this game. What really comes to my mind on this game is I think about last year, and Colorado barely pulled out that win in Colorado. And if it had not been for Nebraska's quarterback with some untimely turnovers, I think Nebraska actually would have won that game. Now we insert Dylan Raiola, who I don't look for to have that same inconsistent play as we saw last year in the game. I think that could be the difference and be just enough for Nebraska to pull out a close one. I take Nebraska.
Now their next game at Colorado State, a rematch of one of last year's best games. We remember that. What was it? Double overtime thriller that they had. An amazing game. Colorado State, we know they took Colorado to the wire last year, like I said. They also returned Troy Horton at receiver, one of the nation's best receivers, a player that blazed Colorado all last season. It's going to be close again. Colorado State, revenge on their minds. They really shouldn't have lost that game last year. They had Colorado. They choked in the end. It'll be at Colorado State. A lot of people are going to show up to watch this game. Talent, though, when I look at, okay, why was that game so close last year? I think it was because Travis Hunter went out so early. And I think he'll be the difference maker in this year's game. And that's why I think Colorado will win.
Okay, I have the same take. Colorado takes the win. I think it'll be a very hyped up game, a lot of energy in the stadium, but I think that it was the same way last year. And I wonder, with that energy being in the stadium that way, that might be a bit odd for Colorado State. They might be the ones that struggle a bit under that type of pressure.
Yeah, lights are too bright.
Yeah, lights too bright. The stage is too big. And I think because of that, and also because Travis Hunter got put out of the game last year, I look for him to come back with revenge on his mind. And I think he's going to take control on both sides of the ball, have a huge game, and that's going to be the difference to bring Colorado a victory in that one.
Now, after 2 road games, they're back at home against Baylor. Not much to talk about from this Baylor team. This is a hot seat year for their head coach, and they have a pretty bad defense. I expect Colorado to win this one big.
You said the words, bad defense. Bad defense is the reason that Colorado will win this game. Baylor, you're still trying to get it together. This won't be the year that you have it. Colorado wins it.
Yeah, so you start Big 12 play 1-0. That's a good start.
Yeah.
Their next game at UCF won't be as easy. UCF, they have Gus Malzahn at head coach. Someone that was at Auburn, had some very successful years at Auburn.
Yes.
They also bring in KJ Jefferson at quarterback, a quarterback transfer from Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
He's an explosive player. And they also have running back RJ Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
He'll go down as one of UCF's best running backs ever. He was well over 1,000 yards last year, and I think he will be again this year. It's going to be close. When I look at this game, I think, will Colorado have their offensive line figured out by now? If they do, they'll win. If they don't, they won't. I think they will, though, and that's why I'm taking Colorado in this game.
You said it. Colorado's line is going to be the difference. They're not going to perform. Why? Because last year, UCF's Achilles heel was the front four of that defense. And that front four, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. So that made their secondary suffer. Now, the secondary is still, is suspect. They're bringing back the same four starters that they had last year, and that was one of the worst secondaries in college football. So you look for Shedeur to be able to pick them apart, but I don't think he's going to have the same time that he would have had against UCF last year. So I look for UCF to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. They shored up that defensive line to stop the run game. I think that'll be enough for them to be explosive in their own run game, and that carried them to victory over Colorado. Give me UCF.
Now their next game against Kansas State. Colorado's going to be at home, but Kansas State, I look for them to be one of the best teams in the Big 12 this year. They have Avery Johnson at quarterback. Some people think, well, not some people, a lot of people think he's an upgrade over Will Howard. He shined in the few snaps and one starting game that he had last year. They have DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards, the Colorado transfer we were talking about, in the backfield. That's going to bring a big two-headed monster. And then they also bring in Penn State transfer Dante Cephas at wide receiver. I'm going to put it out there. I think Kansas State is one of the best teams in the Big 12, probably top two. They won't lose to Colorado. Give me Kansas State in this game.
I'm thinking the same thing. I think Kansas State has transformed that team into actually a contender to get into the CFP.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I look at what they did last year. All of their losses last year were less than double-digit losses.
Yeah.
So they were in every game they played. And I think that consistency from last year rolls over into this year, and you're going to see Kansas State put together a really good season. Not just this game. I think they're going to put together a good season. They're going to do more than what a lot of people expect them to, because some people are not expecting them to be one of the last few standing in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I anticipate that they will be. I'm going to go out on a ledge and say Colorado State not only wins this game, but they show up in the Big 12 championship.
That's a hot take. Now, another contender in the Big 12, their next game at Arizona. Arizona is one of the better teams in the Big 12 this year.
Yes.
They bring back quarterback Noah Fafita. I expect him to have an explosive breakout year.
Yes.
And they also bring back wide receiver T-Mac, who we know he might end the season as the best wide receiver in college football. Yeah. He's that good, that talented, and that long. He's a big receiver.
It's going to be great watching him and Travis Hunter match up against each other.
That might be the matchup of the year.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be anticipated and hyped for this matchup. When it comes down to it, though, Arizona, yes, they have that wide receiver quarterback 1-2 punch, but outside of that, you don't see much from their offense. They struggle to have a wide receiver 2, a true wide receiver 2, and then they struggle at tight ends and especially struggle at running back. This was a team that could not run the ball effectively last year, and I don't think they'll be able to this year. Colorado, though, one of the teams that struggled to defend the run last year. So weakness on weakness, they're going to go against each other. It's going to be close. This game is in Arizona. I go back and forth on this because overall, I feel like Colorado is the more talented team, but Arizona, everybody's expecting big things from there. Arizona has a good secondary as well. So it's close. It's really close. I'm going to take Arizona in a close one. This is a game like some games that we've talked about in our other teams' predictions that I could switch the week of the game.
Yeah.
It's going to be close. I'm going to take Arizona.
Yeah. Colorado will have to show me a lively offensive line, offensive line that's actually opening up some holes and getting Dallin Hayden the ball and having his production be just as substantial as the production from their quarterback position. I don't see that happening this quickly. So Arizona, I look at their defense. They have a pretty solid defense. You talked about their lack of running game, but what do they have in quarterback? They have a quarterback that can keep his feet alive and extend plays. I think that is going to be problematic for the Colorado defense. And because Colorado will not get pressure on the quarterback, that's going to be enough for them for Arizona to be productive in the passing game. And I think they'll do just enough in the running game against that weak Colorado defense, because I still don't believe in the offensive or the defensive line of Colorado with all the transfers in. I'm still questioning that. Hope Warren Sapp can do something to prove me wrong. But as for me, this game, I think Arizona's going to do enough because it's going to be in their own backyard. Give me Arizona in a close one.
Now their next game against Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati is a team that hasn't done anything since their playoff run in 2021,
Yeah.
a really magical run.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since then, they haven't done anything, especially with the departure of Luke Fickell. He left to go to Wisconsin a few years back. They bring in Evan Pryor, running back transfer from Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get any real reps. He was always injured.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get any time to shine at Ohio State. I think he will shine at Cincinnati, but I mean, come on, there's not much to talk about. Colorado's the more talented team. I think Colorado will get their first really big win of the year outside of Baylor.
Now, Cincinnati has a transfer coming in at quarterback. And they also have a transfer tight end coming in from Ohio State, Royer. I think that those two might be able to put together some pressure on that secondary of Colorado. And I think although we look at it on paper, and you're absolutely right, Colorado on paper stands to be the more talented team. But I don't think this game is going to be as big of a victory for Colorado as a lot would expect. Even with that, though, I do believe that Colorado will win the game. I just think it's going to be a lot tighter than people are thinking.
Now, their next game at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is returning a duo of starting quarterback Baron Morton and 1,000-plus-yard rusher Taj Brooks. Their defense, though, lost a lot on defense.
Yeah,
their secondary lost 3 of their 5 starters from the 2023 season, and I think they're going to struggle in that department. In Colorado, I think they'll exploit that, and I think Colorado will go into Texas Tech and pull out a victory.
Texas Tech is always an enigma. Sometimes their teams can put together some offenses that are just extremely explosive. I look at what they're bringing back in the quarterback and the run game. I think Texas Tech always has at least a serviceable receiving crew. I think that's going to be the difference against a weaker Colorado defense. When I look at strength on strength or strength on weakness, I guess, I say that Texas Tech's offense will put up more points than Colorado is able to, and Texas Tech wins at home.
I just don't think Texas Tech will be that good this year. In the future, I think they will be, but not this year.
I'm not saying that Texas Tech is going to be a world beater or anything like that. I just think they're going to have enough to win against Colorado at home.
Their next game versus Utah. Now, Utah, they're probably the preseason, they're the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion. They bring back quarterback Cam Rising, who didn't get to play last year.
2 years.
Yeah, due to injury. But when he was playing, I mean, he was one of the best quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You look back at that game he had against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. He's an explosive quarterback. He might not look like one, but trust me, he's one of the better quarterbacks. There's not much to talk about, man. Utah, this is their year. They've been teasing the line of a playoff team for the past few seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is their year with the 12-team playoff that they finally get in.
Mm-hmm.
And Colorado, you don't have enough to compete with them. I think Utah wins.
Yeah.
And Utah probably wins big.
Yeah, I think look at Utah as they are the cream of the crop in that Big 12. I look for the conference to come down to them and Kansas State. Uh, and I mean, what else do you need to say? I don't think Colorado is going to be in this game at all.
Yeah.
I think unlike last year, Colorado hung around with
Yeah.
Utah last year, but I think with Rising coming back at quarterback, I think that's going to make all the difference necessary for Utah to put this one away pretty big.
Their next game at Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kansas is a team that brings back 30 seniors. That's a huge amount.
Veteran club.
They also bring back quarterback Jalen Daniels, who got hurt early last year.
Mm-hmm.
But when he did play, I mean, there's not much to talk about. He's a walking highlight reel, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Evan Neal is a good running back that they bring back. And then they also have a very good tight end room.
Mm-hmm.
This defense is led by cornerback Kobe Bryant, not to be confused with the Kobe Bryant of the NBA
Mm-hmm.
and the Kobe Bryant that played at Cincinnati, another cornerback,
right,
a few years ago. He's one of the nation's top cornerbacks, though, and I think he'll show it in this game. Him against Travis Hunter, another good matchup that I'm looking forward to. But Kansas, this is their year to show, hey, with the two big teams in the Big 12 leaving Texas and Oklahoma, we're going to step up, and I have Kansas in this game.
Okay, so as you mentioned, 30 seniors returning. We saw the difference that it made for Michigan to have that many veteran players come back. I think you're going to see that same meaning happen with Ohio State having so many veteran guys coming back
this year. Yeah,
this year, yes. Now you got Kansas, 30 veteran guys coming back against Colorado, who a lot of Colorado's program looking forward is being built around these freshmen that are coming in. So I think you're looking at a strength in experience and a weakness against, hey, I'm just figuring this thing out. Colorado, you go into Kansas to play this game, you come out with a loss.
Now, their last game of the season against Oklahoma State. We all know about Oklahoma State's Ollie Gordon at running back. And if you didn't know before, you definitely know now if you've been playing the NCAA
200
college football game.
200 yards.
Yeah, people are rage quitting because of Ollie Gordon. I mean, he's one of the top backs in the game. You also bring back Alan Bowman at quarterback, who's returning for his 7th season. Now, I must say, this is a guy that I don't really like that much. I saw him play a lot last year, and I saw him struggle a lot, especially against Texas. I think if they had better quarterback game, they could have hung around that Big 12 championship game better than they did. But they do have a good receiving core, but they also have an uncertain defense. Now, Colorado, with the predictions that we have so far, they probably won't get into the college football playoffs, which means that they'll get a decent bowl game since all the New Year's Six games are in the playoffs now. But what I'm trying to get at here is I don't think Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter will play in the bowl game, and I think they'll want to go out strong. So I think they'll go out strong against Oklahoma State, a team with an uncertain defense, and I think they'll get the win in their final collegiate games.
Oklahoma State brings in Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon is going to be one of the nation's leading rushers. Colorado cannot defend the run. Colorado loses this game, and they lose the game big.
I don't think Shedeur and Travis will go out like that. I think, like I said, their final college game, they'll probably opt out of the bowl game. This is also the end of the season. You have a lot of time to figure out that run defense.
Let me ask you this. Is Shedeur or Travis Hunter going to line up at defensive tackle?
No. But like I'm saying,
It ain't gonna
the
make a
the
difference.
Colorado defensive line is gonna have time to figure it out. This is their last game.
They're gonna figure out that they're not good.
I think Ollie Gordon will be explosive. I think he might rush for 200
He's gonna
plus
get
in this
200
game.
yards in this game.
But Alan Bowman, when it comes down to it, Colorado's going to have to make adjustments. They're going to have to make halftime adjustments in this game and stuff the run.
Yep, because
and
they're
when
gonna be down big.
No, I don't think they'll be down big at half. Well, even if they are down big, you've seen that they can come back. Look at the game last year against USC. They've shown that, hey, if we're down big, they were down, 41-14 in that game and almost came back to win.
Yeah.
So no matter what, I think Colorado, they have the ability to come back, but I don't think they'll need to. I think they'll make adjustments. They'll stuff the run, and when they stuff the run, they'll force Oklahoma State to pass the ball, which I don't expect Oklahoma State to be able to do.
No.
And that's why I have Colorado in this game.
Okay.
Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, they won't go out in a blowout. They definitely won't go out in a blowout.
Well, this is why they play the game. And me looking at it on paper, I have nothing to prove that Colorado at this point in time can stop the run. We're not, we don't have any world beaters on the defensive line. We don't have anybody that we're really putting our eye on in terms of linebackers. All we talk about is their secondary, but their secondary is not going to come into play for this game. This game is going to be about the run attack. And I think Oklahoma State is going to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball extremely well, 200 plus yards on their rushing attack. They keep the ball out of Shedeur's hands, and they end up with the victory, and they end up with it pretty soundly.
I just can't see it.
If only that dog in Shedeur and that dog in Travis Hunter
through the entire team
could flow into the rest of the team, I would say if that happened, look for them to hit the CFP. Other than that, look for them to have a down season. We'll just call it that. That's my prediction.
So that's our prediction for Colorado this season. I have them finishing at 8-4, while you have them finishing at 4-8. So you think they'll repeat what they had last season?
Yes.
This is a talented team. Everything's going to come down to their offensive line. Mm-hmm. If their offensive line surprises everybody and balls out, I think this is a team that could be, when it comes down to it, maybe a top 12 team, could be fighting for a playoff spot.
I would welcome myself being wrong, but it takes that offensive line to do a total 180 in order for that to happen. I just don't see it. I looked at what they brought in on the transfer portal. I'm not extremely excited about that. I'm looking at the majority of their production on the line having to come from freshmen. I just don't see it happening for them this season. Do I think they'll turn it around eventually? Yeah, if they keep doing what they're doing, I believe they're on the road to turn it around. Just not this season.
It's going to be interesting. Deion's always going to have some talk around him.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, Deion's my guy, so I would love to be wrong in this.
And they've got a lot of talented players that's going to keep eyes on them throughout the season. But that's our final predictions. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow all our channels listed below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.